In the crowded streets of Ajagunla, Lagos, where survival was more important than dreams, lived a young woman named Matilda, a girl whose only crime was being born every morning before sunrise, while others still slept peacefully. Matilda carried bread on her head through flooded streets and noisy traffic. Under the hot Lagos sun, she hustled from bus stop to bus stop, from market to market, just to help her family survive. But no matter how hard she tried, it was never enough. Because inside her own home, Matilda was treated like a curse. Her mother, Mama Grace, believed darkness entered their lives the day Matilda was born. The same week Matilda came into the world, her father lost his biggest contract. The family was thrown out of their apartment, and shortly after, death visited the family. One prophet pointed at baby Matilda and said, "This child came with darkness." And from that day, everything changed. Every problem became Matilda's fault. If money got missing, they blamed Matilda. If Kelvin failed exams, they blamed Matilda. If suffering entered the house, they blamed Matilda, even though she was the one sacrificing the most. While her younger siblings continued school, Matilda stopped her education and began hawking on the streets. Every kobo she made was collected by her mother, even the little things she bought for herself were taken away and given to her younger sister, Natasha. But the deepest pain was not poverty. It was rejection. Matilda never heard words like, "I'm proud of you," or "well done." Instead, she heard insults every single day. One rainy evening, after returning from hawking soaked and exhausted, Matilda handed over the money she made that day. But because the amount was small, Mama Grace reacted angrily. Matilda stood there silently, humiliated in front of everyone, and nobody defended her. Not her father, not Kelvin, not Natasha. Only little Maria watched with tears in her eyes. Late that night, while everyone slept, Matilda sat beside the compound water tank eating dry Gary alone. That was where Maria secretly brought her fish wrapped in nylon. And for a brief moment, Matilda remembered what kindness felt like. As years passed, different men came asking to marry Matilda, but every single time, her family chased them away. Mama Grace would whisper terrible lies. "She is possessed. She brings bad luck. Men around her always suffer." And one after another, the suitors disappeared until Emmanuel arrived. The day his black Corolla entered the compound, the entire family became excited. Mama Grace suddenly smiled again. Natasha adjusted her wig immediately. Kelvin saw opportunity because they believed Emmanuel was rich. But Emmanuel was different. While others focused on beauty, Emmanuel noticed pain. He noticed how Matilda served everybody before eating. He noticed how fear entered her eyes whenever her mother shouted. He noticed how she smiled, even while suffering. And slowly, he fell in love with her. For the first time in her life, someone saw Matilda as human. But Mama Grace became terrified because she knew if Matilda escaped that house, her destiny would shine. Desperate to stop the relationship, Mama Grace visited a native doctor secretly, but the old man shocked her. "That girl carries light," he said. "Your hatred is what destroyed this family." Mama Grace refused to listen. Instead, she pushed Natasha toward Emmanuel. Natasha began dressing beautifully around him, laughing loudly around him, trying to steal his attention. Then suddenly, everything changed. The expensive car disappeared. The money stopped flowing. And the truth finally came out. Emmanuel was never rich. The wealth belonged to his boss overseas. Immediately, the family turned against him. The same people who welcomed him warmly now mocked him openly. Natasha lost interest. Mama Grace insulted him. Kelvin laughed at him. But Matilda stayed. One rainy night, she found Emmanuel sitting hopelessly beside a roadside fence. Broken, ashamed, alone, quietly. Matilda gave him food and the only money she made that day. Emmanuel looked at her in disbelief. After everything they did to you, how are you still this kind? Matilda smiled sadly and replied, "Because I know how pain feels." That night, Emmanuel cried for her, not because she was beautiful, but because nobody deserved that kind of suffering. When Mama Grace discovered Matilda was still helping Emmanuel, the house exploded in chaos. Rain poured heavily across the compound. Voices echoed everywhere. Mama Grace screamed in anger. Kelvin threw Matilda's clothes outside into muddy water. Babatunde shouted loudly. Natasha stood proudly watching everything. Maria cried helplessly near the doorway, and little David hugged Matilda tightly, begging her not to leave. For the first time in years, Matilda finally broke down completely. Not because of the insults, not because of the suffering, but because she realized her own family truly did not want her. That night, Matilda left the house with Emmanuel, not into wealth, not into comfort, but into peace. Life remained difficult. They lived inside one tiny rented room. Sometimes there was no food. Sometimes there was no electricity. But for the first time in her life, Matilda slept without fear. Together, they struggled. Together, they survived. And slowly, their lives changed. Years later, Matilda became successful. The same girl they once called cursed now owned one of the most successful restaurants in Lagos. People respected her. People admired her strength. And one afternoon, someone unexpected walked into her restaurant. Mama Grace, older now, weaker, broken by life. Kelvin had lost his way. Natasha's marriage had failed. Babatunde was sick. And suddenly, the daughter they rejected became their only hope. Tears filled Mama Grace's eyes as she whispered, "Matilda, forgive me." The entire restaurant became silent. For a long moment, Matilda said nothing. Then slowly, she pulled out a chair and softly replied, "Sit down, Mama." At that moment, the girl they once called a curse became the light that saved them all, because sometimes the child rejected by everyone becomes the blessing they never recognized. The end.